Just like that, we are finally here. We have hit the end of the road for 2022 for QLC and for the end of the season, season six. I told y'all season 6A started one way, and then I told you after 6B, which was after the quarter life crisis, was going to be a little bit of a doozy, and it was, and it actually shocked me. I didn't even expect it to be the way it was, but it's definitely been a time of growth. I've noticed my audio stream numbers have skyrocketed back up higher than ever. They had kind of receded for a little while. I didn't really know what was up with that, and then they just like, boom. I think it's the titles and the change to the titles that I made, but maybe it's just that time too. But as we end off not only the season, but the second part or the bonus tracks to quarter life crisis, the last week talking about not allowing people's limitations to keep you boxed in and breaking out the box. People try to keep you in because of their fears and their failures. This episode centers around why it's important for us young millennials to be leaders. Okay. This is probably one of the shortest memes I've ever created, but it's a play on words, but I like it. The meme for this week reads, lead or be led. That's it. That's it. Inspiration for this week comes from Proverbs 16:9. It says, the heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. And I'm really big on, seeking God in everything that you do and not just jumping out thinking, oh, I'm going to do this because you have to always sit and kind of prep. It's good to have great ideas, and I'm a great idea person, but you still have to kind of sit and let things kind of come about. You can't just go off the first thing, but you kind of have to let stuff develop and go from there. Other inspiration comes from Quarter Life Crisis, which is the mid-season album that then turned into a deluxe because now we have the 2 bonus tracks. And then Christmas, y'all. Christmas is 3 days away. I'm pretty excited for it because all the things we got planned, that's going to be planned that I'm going to be a part of. So this year I've actually been a part of, I went a part to 2 ugly sweater parties. Great time. They were both totally different and the vibe was different, but they had a great time. And then on Christmas Eve, my mom throws a brunch every year and it's pretty epic. Every year she's been doing every year since 2016 when I graduated from college. It went as my graduation brunch, and then it just turned into like a consistent thing. So I'm pretty happy about that. And then now we here where we are today. So when we talk about Christmas, before we get into today's episode, all I want for Christmas is for y'all to get out my DMs. And when I say get out my DMs, I don't mean like sexually, although it's that too. But what I mean is get out my DMs when it comes to talking about your opinion. I wish I could play that I think it was Stephen A. Smith TikTok when he was like, we don't care. That'd be me because y'all be in there talking about stuff. Let me tell you something. Y'all need to grow some self-discipline. How many times have I seen stuff on y'all page that was absolutely absurd? And even if it triggered me, guess what I did? I kept scrolling. I didn't feel the need to give my opinion on it. You can give your opinion respectfully, and I can give mine, and that's it. Everything is not a debate. Everything is not it's just not. Certain things you can just respect and go about your business. You know what I mean? You don't have to agree with it. I don't say everything, and I'm not going to say everything. And I'm trying to move to the point where I'm only speaking when led, but not a play on words, but funny because we're talking about being a leader. But still, you just have to, certain things y'all just have to ignore. I'm going to go to this topic next before I go to the third one because the third one is semi-heavy. Second, since we're kind of on the like funny tip, everybody knows I'm a dessert person and I like to eat. You know what I mean? But when it comes to dessert, I am sorry to say nothing but cakes are trifling. They are gross. And I usually can, and I like cakes and I like cookies. I like all the desserts. Like I'm a dessert kind of guy, but nothing but cakes. I've tried them several times and I just can't get with them. And I know now that's going to stir up some people because people are like, oh, we got some nothing but cakes. And I was like, oh, okay. They're like, you don't want one? I said, absolutely not. Like, the memes where it was like them videos where it'd be like me with like a dessert or like a food or whatever, and then the person goes and like throw the proper way to eat something and they throw it in the trash. That's what I would do. But I wouldn't just throw it in the trash. I would probably step on it too. And if I'm really being rambunctious, I might even spit on it, then throw it away. And I'm so serious. I'm not, and y'all gonna say I'm being dramatic. You're gonna say I'm being extra, but guess what? We don't care. Finally, something else I kind of don't care about, but I'm still gonna speak on is the other week, last week actually, Tory Lanez and the whole Megan Thee Stallion thing came back up, and I saw somebody say, "Y'all, we are tired." No, we really are tired of the story. The story's not making sense. It goes in and out, and everybody's story it's just like a snake. Do I believe anybody should get shot? Absolutely not. But at this point, I don't know what to believe, and at this point, I honestly kind of don't care. But what I will say is everybody's like the Spider-Man meme at this point. Everybody's just pointing fingers at each other. There's nobody's taking accountability or they kind of dancing around it. And I'm over it. But I'm gonna be honest here. I'm gonna be honest. And they might not like this comment, but I don't blame Meg or Tori, and I don't blame Kelsey. I blame Kylie Jenner because anytime a Kardashian is present, witchcraft seems to pop up in some way, shape, or form. And you might say, well, she's a Jenner, she's not a Kardashian. She's a Kardashian. Okay. So when we think about all of that, and we think about how to be lead or be led, I instantly think of, in situations like this, when you're in, I know with me at least, when I sense something is about to go left, I feel like that kind of gives me a vibe, like, hey, yo, this ain't the right place you need to be in. You might need to flee the scene. I feel like somebody got a bad feeling before all that went down, but they ain't leave. And see, this is what happens when you don't follow directions. Okay? Because you have to be a great leader, but you also know how to be led in some instances. Because there's difference between leading as far as being led is like in a following way, and then being led like, following directions, because ultimately the best leaders still is a servant and a follower in some way. So I don't want to get too much into that right now because I do have the final interview of the year. So let me go ahead and introduce my guest. My man, what's going on?
Oh, dude. Well, everything you just said was just on point. Hell yeah.
I appreciate it. So how you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I feel like I have the most energy I've ever had in my life, and the best days are yet to come. So it's a good feeling.
That's how I feel. I feel like 2023, a lot of people, they have to understand when you don't, I mean, you in some areas, I feel like you can, but I feel like at least 80% of your year need to have started before the new year actually starts.
Oh my God. It's so crazy how aligned we are. Yeah, I was thinking about that, right? I think this morning, how most people are thinking how they can make the new year the best year, discounting the 17 or 18 days that we have left, which is insane, right? Because if you really, really want to have a good year, you don't start when the year starts. You start it beforehand. And it would be stupid to say that, we plan to win like some big basketball game or soccer game or something when the game starts and not do any practice at all. Like, it would just sound idiotic, but somehow people think that we should wait until the beginning of the year.
Exactly. So I'm just interested to see. But before we get too into that, although, we have the camera here for the people on YouTube, also like, share, and subscribe. But for those of people who are just audio only, tell the people what's your name, where you from, and where do you live now?
Yeah, my name is Ruben Alvarez. I am originally from California. I live in El Paso, Texas. And what happened is 2019, we moved from California to Arizona, and then we missed the housing, and then the housing went up, and then we decided to move to El Paso. Like, if we move to Arizona, we can move to anywhere. So that's where I'm at now.
Okay. So how do you like El Paso?
I love it. There's good and there's bad, right? It's a small town, so anybody who's lived in a small town knows that it's who you know, which is the good part, but also the bad thing is that nothing really gets done unless you know someone. So
Okay.
it's the good and the bad, and then there's the ugly, and so you just pretty much take it all as it is.
Absolutely. So now tell the people what it is it that you do for a living.
So I have a marketing company that we started in 2019, right before COVID hit. Actually, it was July, and then we moved to Arizona in, I want to say, November. Then COVID hit, like, sometime in March or something like that. But we were doing social media marketing for a lot of people. We noticed that everybody's willing to do it for about $500, and it's really hard to compete that way. So we ended up switching it to a marketing agency. And then from a marketing agency, we switched it over to a marketing agency that primarily focuses on branding and content creation.
Okay. And see, and I like when you said that because everybody's doing the same thing. So you have to figure out what is going to make you stand out and doing it, as far as like, do you want to try to copy somebody's stuff, or do you want to say, okay, I'm going to do this too, but let me add a little twist to it and make sure I can kind of capitalize on what I'm doing and nobody else is doing. Okay. So I'm sure I know the answer, but I have to ask for the show. Do you consider yourself a leader?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tell me 3 reasons why.
Okay, so the hardest one I think is that I'm able to swallow my ego when I know that I need to, which is really, really difficult for a lot of leaders. We actually got into some situations last week in which it was, F them and F this person and to hell with them and we'll leave this customer go. And you get the team started, right, with the same thing. And then you have to reel it back and tell them, I was wrong. And what I did was I actually apologized to the person that offended us, even though they might be in the wrong. So that's one reason. The second reason is that I'm able to see patterns a lot faster than other people, and I'm able to get
Okay.
them to see the same patterns. So we're able to move a lot faster because it's not just me, keeping the information, but also it's being able to see the information fast enough so that way it benefits everyone. And then finally, the third reason, I think it's because I actually care about the people that I'm leading, the company that we built. My main goal is to have people actually make more money than where they were at prior to where they were with me. So it's not a selfish reason that I have a business, but it's really a reason to help everybody grow, not just myself.
Okay. Good answers. Good answers. So now tell the people, because you've been featured all over the place. So tell the people a few places that you've been featured.
Yeah, so the biggest one is Forbes. That was recent. We got TEDx talk. So we were in TEDx. We've been featured in the Chamber of Commerce here locally. We've been featured in the city of Socorro, which is an actual city. We're partners with them on a lot of stuff. Featured in Influencive, New York Weekly, LA Wire, Dario de Querétaro, which is, a Mexican one that is a pretty big news outlet. Um, a few Mexican ones. I'm pretty sure nobody would have heard of, but they're local city ones, right? So those are the biggest ones.
Okay. Good stuff. And when you got the call from Forbes, like, what was you doing at that moment? Like, was you out? Was you at home? What was going on?
Yeah, so I had to find somebody who helped me with that. And so what he said more than anything is the way that you're positioned right now is really good, but I think that if we position you as an American entrepreneur who is really really well known in Mexico, we can have Forbes get interested. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So we started doing a lot of what we call it in marketing, like it's more market positioning than anything. So it's really the perception of who you are and changing that perception. So we started doing a lot of things that would introduce us more into a Mexican audience, not a Mexican audience in the US, but more of a Mexican audience in Mexico. And so through that, he ended up calling me one day and he goes, all right, we got the interview. And I was like, what do you mean we got the interview? He was like, for Forbes. I was like, no, we didn't. I'm very much a skeptical. Like, I don't know if everybody, whenever you hear something that's too good to be true, like, hey, you know what? You're getting a free car. If you're just like, there's no way I'm getting a free car, right? Like, it's not believable. So that's pretty much what happened. He said, we're going to Forbes. I was like, all right, cool. And then we went and I went to his office and he set up the interview and they interviewed me and they're like, yeah, we're from Forbes. And I was like, no way. I'm still in disbelief. It wasn't until he actually sent me the link from Forbes that I actually believed it. So to your question, I'm not sure what I was doing, but I was in complete disbelief for about 3
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, that's how I would be like when them crazy stuff like that happen. You'd be like, nah, the y'all playing with me. It's a joke. I instantly think about it's kind of corny, but I think about old school Usher and the Usher Confessions video when he was trying to do that skit at the beginning, like when he found out his side chick was pregnant, and that's kind of how I act. Okay, so now I have a few phrases, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. No right or wrong answer.
Okay.
So obviously, the first one, when you hear the word leader, what comes to mind?
I think of someone strong who is able to give hope to the people that are there. So it kind of encompasses a lot, right? It's somebody who's willing to have tough conversations. It's somebody who's willing to tell people that the boat might be sinking, even though we might not want to hear it. Things like that.
Yeah.
I imagine somebody who is not afraid to really put it all on the line, so that way people understand what's going on.
Okay. When you hear the phrase brand shark, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Me.
And when you hear the phrase failure resistance, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
Failure resistance, a little corny, but I think of persistence, right?
Okay.
The complete opposite. Failure resistance. You just got to keep hammering away until your hands bleed, until you die.
All right. So I went ahead to find leader says the person who leads or commands a group, organization, or country. And then failure resistance, it says the psychological quality that allows some people to be knocked down by their adversities of life and come back at least as strong as before. So persistent, I'll take that. Now, I intentionally did not define brand shark because I want you to tell the people what that is.
Yeah. So this one's interesting. The way that I thought of it originally was I wanted to have an animal that represents me or the movement or whatever it is that we're doing. And I feel like most people overuse the shark and the lion or the wolf or things of that nature. Some people have started assimilating with octopuses and things like that, or octopi, I guess I should say. And I was like, I don't know, that one's not really for me. But for some reason, the shark is something that even when I go in the ocean, terrifies the hell out of me, right? You don't know what's in the ocean. You don't know if it's going to come out of nowhere. You're missing a leg out of nowhere, and they just left, And so for me, it's always been a scary thing. And I think the problem with the shark is not the shark itself. It's that you're in the water and we're not meant to be in water. So they have an upper hand. Right. And so the whole thing behind the brand shark is being able to have the upper hand, even though you might do the same thing as someone else, but you always have the upper hand. So how can you have that upper hand in your business so that way, if they ever come against you, you just take the leg and go, hey, there's a warning. Next one, you're dead, So that's what the brand shark is just unfair advantages. And you have people that just don't ever want to compete with you.
Wow. Okay. So you got people who going to be trying to call themselves a brand shark after this, I feel. All right. So now we move into the other segment. One of my first segments of the day. What does this have to do with mental health? So before we get too deep into that, what is brand identity to you?
So technically there's brand image and brand identity. Brand image is just all the stuff that you see, and then brand identity is the stuff that you don't see, but that pretty much makes up all the feelings that people feel about you, right? That's the book version of what brand identity is. But brand identity, more than anything, is just the feeling that you're able to convey and the promise that you give to people without them having to know that you are promising it to them. If I have to promise you something, for example, if Coke says, hey, you know what, I'm sugar water that makes you feel good when you drink it, then it really destroys the identity of the brand, right? Because you're like, you had to tell me what it is. But the identity is really all those things that you think of, even though I haven't had to say them about you.
Okay. Now, let's talk. We talked about brand identity, and what was it? I think it was like the Thanksgiving special. It wasn't a Thanksgiving special, but it was just came out on Thanksgiving. And we talked, me and my boy Frankie, we talked about, that, pitching brands and that we are our own brand. And so when we think of brand identity, whether it's a person, yourself, or whether it's an actual, what's the word I'm looking for? Whether it's an actual, brand, as far as like a business of some kind. Do you feel that social media makes it easy or difficult?
It makes it easy. The hardest part is, and this kind of goes into your segment of mental health, the hardest part is the mental health aspect of social media. I think if you really disattach your feelings from what you are going to post or how you want to be perceived, then it makes it really easy to post whatever you need to post. But it is because our ego gets in the way that social media gets hard. So we say, hey, this looks really bad. This is low quality. I think I look tired in this one. And so what we do is we judge ourselves, but we never actually make the adjustments to be better on social media. So we say, hey, you know what? Social media is broken because nobody likes my stuff. And you continue to post the same exact stuff. I see this all the time. People post the exact same thing over and over again and then blame the platform. If that was the case, then everybody would have problems with the platform. But the truth is that people don't. So why is that people don't? It's because they actually learn from their mistakes.
And it's funny because my next question was, do you feel that social media is a big game or follow the leader? And Yeah.
Yeah, social media to me is really high school all over again. And I think that if you really think about it that way, it becomes very, very easy to where the person who seems the most popular is the most popular, not because they are, just because they seem that they are, right? And so social media has become this game of, can I seem more popular than I am, or can I actually get that popularity for real? And so the issue here is, let me buy a ton of followers, but then I have no engagement, so everybody knows that you're fake, and pretty much you spend a lot of money for no reason, right? So if you're able to really understand that popularity is the name of the game when it comes to social media, and how you're able to cultivate a real audience and have them engage, that's how you're successful on social media.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like when social media first started, if you bought a bunch of followers, everybody thought you was lit. But now, like, people can clearly see through it now, and it's just funny how people have advanced with, social, how has social media has advanced now. So it kind of goes into the next topic of image. And do you feel that a good leader has a good image?
I feel a good leader is there for his people, whether the image is good or not.
Right.
And I believe the two people, well, maybe we could even go three. The three people that we can take examples from, whether you like him or not, is Donald Trump. Even though people really didn't like him, he was the president of the United States. And so, therefore, the people that he was there for really admired him. We also have Andrew Tate, which people don't like, but then there's people that do like him. And then
Right.
finally, it is Elon Musk, which is, again, on both sides of the spectrum. So the thing is that whether or not you're there for your people, the moment that you betray your people is what makes you a bad leader. And so I think that we have to look at like why it is that people don't like others and why they do, and whether or not that really qualifies them as a bad leader, not as a bad person, right? Because we can still say that people might do things and that makes them bad people, but are they bad leaders? And so it's not that I would say that one person is good or bad, right? That's for everybody's own opinion.
Right.
But the qualities of a leader, I think, are not based on opinion, but it's really based on core fundamental things that we all agree on.
Yeah, and that's funny because I like that the difference between a good leader and a good person. Because I mean, look at Hitler. Hitler was a great leader.
Exactly. Yeah, but a horrible person.
Yeah, he was going crazy. All right, so now let's move on to, according to mental health. It's article called "According to Mental Health: A Leader's Guide" by Savan Hansen. It says the pressures on for mental health leadership is obscure, subjective, messy to engage, uncomfortable, complex, and threatening. It says the prevalence of mental health issues are rising fast, and we barely have just started. Some leaders may question their own sanity. In the past, we could say that he or she has a screw loose and dismiss the problem to a specialist. This is no longer acceptable or viable. Leaders who have to get their heads around a topic and work out how to manage the consequences skillfully. Leaders to understand and manage the mental health risk. So now, summing that up, because that was a lot, basically saying that it's no longer okay to just be like, oh, they're crazy. You if you were to do that publicly now, like, you would get like hate mail, not actual mail, but your comments would be going crazy, especially if you're on a public platform. And that basically saying leadership can be, I like the adjective, subjective, messy, uncomfortable, complex, and threatening. So I really like that part. Now, do you or have you ever questioned your own sanity?
My own sanity.
Yes.
Many, many times, and I believe that if you don't question your sanity, you might either be narcissistic or you might have something really wrong with you, right? Because it is so hard for you to know everything at every single moment. So how do you not question whether you're doing something right or wrong? And to that point, I think one of the hardest things too is to find a mentor, to find, because we're easily able to find information, right? We can find it in books and we can find it on YouTube videos, we can find it on everything. But the hardest thing is to be able to ask somebody something directly, them have enough credibility for you to take it as real, and not say this guy's just as lost as I am on this. And so I think that that's the hardest part of sanity, and questioning our own sanity is, am I crazy? And then can I find someone who I don't believe as human as I am to believe that they're not crazy, to accept their reality as mine?
Yeah, no, I put down in my notes, I said I question my own sanity at least 10 times a day.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, man. I must be crazy. Especially when everybody makes you think you crazy, because typically when you have a mindset that is truly, I say, creative, and then of course go ahead of that and say innovative, you tend to not think like everybody else. So they'll be like, "Oh, that's cool." And then a lot of times, even your own family look at you like, "What you talking about?" And
Oh
then
man,
when
let
it,
me get in on this because I today I was so upset because I might get a little hate for this, but the politicians and I'll say it so we don't I believe this about all politicians, but we were in this town meeting today, and the way that they were talking was so ignorant because they were saying, "Oh, things are getting so much better, and we have all these advocates for the city, and blah blah blah." And me, who just moved here in February, I was like, "Then why don't you have more people moving here? What
right,
is this? What is this blind optimism, right? Like you're spitting things that you believe to be true, but that aren't true." And so the reason that they aren't true is because they don't want change. They want to do the exact same thing over and over and over again and pretend like we're doing great and we're getting progress, but without change, there is no innovation. And the moment that you say that you want something different, it's so true that you are seen as crazy. Just because we say, hey, you know what? Equal rights, right? Even for pay, even for everybody of different skin color, even for women, equal rights. No, we've always had that. What are you talking about? We haven't. That's changed, right? So, yeah, man, that got me fired up. It's 100%.
but I even think about like I've had family members or situations they'll come tell me about, oh, this person's doing this and this person said to do this as far as like to get rich and all these things, and will come give me quotes and watch this video, and I'll be like, well, are you doing it? Well, why you not rich then? Where's your harvest? Where's your abundance? Where's your all these great things? If you can come tell me what they doing, but why you not doing it?
Yeah.
So it sound good, but I'm not for what sound good. I'm about what works. So now let's move into the next part. So do you feel that think the attributes to how some leaders or brands, let me phrase that. Let me phrase this. So why do you think that some leaders and some great brands, or I'll say great because they may not be where they're supposed to be, but they can definitely be there. Why do you think some of them fall short of their goals and they just fall short of their goals?
They don't take calculated risk very well or at all,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because in order to scale or in order to get bigger, you have to hire, which is a calculated risk.
Right.
Even ourselves, we're considering a hire, or do we get an office, right? Because for the longest time during COVID and everything, we haven't needed an office, and so we have this idea of risk that we have to take, just like every other person or brand might need to take. But then also we're like, okay, do we get an office that's close to home, or do we get an office in downtown with views of the city, which becomes a perspective change for us and our customers. And so now we have not only two decisions, but three decisions, and we really have to consider all of it and take action on one. And so that whole process, I believe people just don't do. They say, hey, no, you know what? We're good. We're making profit. Let's just overwork everybody and it'll be fine. And then three people leave. And then you start going down again, right? And then you have to go up and then go down. And so you never really go up. It's because you just kind of keep balancing out all the whole time.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just people, and that's the main thing. Simply, people just, and kind of going off what we said earlier, people are they're afraid of taking calculated risk, and they think that they're okay with certain things being how it is. Like they've wanted to change, but they scared to make the change, or they may have the information and the resources, but they truly don't take it.
Mm-hmm.
So now, earlier we went over the definition of failure resilience, and it says the psychological quality that allows some people to be knocked down by the adversities of life and to come back at least strong as before. So now, when is the last time you suffered from this?
From having to get back up?
Basically, yeah.
Last week.
Okay.
And so the issue was that the moment that I believe you're about to do something great, I think that you're so focused on that everything seems to crash down because you've been so focused on that one thing, right? And so last week we had this really, really great event that we were throwing. And it's funny because leading up to the event, I was so stressed and so many things were happening that literally, even though it was all good, I was so stressed because of that. I was stressed because of the realization that I have so many people that are counting on me, the realization that this company could turn big and now we have even more responsibility, that all these people were going to show up to this party slash networking event, and we had to deliver them the expectations that they had, right? That we had sponsors and they had expectations that we had to put in work the next day, even though we were already busy. And so all of that really made me feel like I can't believe that I have this much responsibility on me at age 31 without really a father in my life growing up, without a business mentor when I started this business 3 years ago, when most businesses fail. Like I just started going through all of it, right? And
Right.
so I got really depressed, really, really depressed. And the one thing that I learned from every single person who's made it is they documented the journey. And so I
Mhm.
made a video just so I have the video and I uploaded it. And instead of saying, "Oh my God, I'm hurting and I'm stressed and I'm depressed," I basically made the video saying, "Look, people are going to come after you and you're going to come after yourself and you're not always going to feel good." And I made it like I was saying it to other people, but I did it for myself. Right. And so I think that that's been the most healing part of being able to get back up, is being able to tell others to do it when you're going it through yourself, so that you have to eat your own words.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's funny because it kind of correlates when people like when people always be like, what do they say? They'll say, "When I start taking my own advice, it's over,"
Yeah.
because a lot of times people they can give the best advice, but they don't always take it. Now, according to this source that I've been reading, it says that there's a 4 different things that leaders can go through mentally that can't get overlooked. It says pressure disorders, and these are primarily cognitive. They start with overload and confusion, which can result in cognitive failure, disengage, attention disorders, and distraction. And this can be simple stuff like, well, not simple, but morally challenging leadership behavior, poor sleep, nutrition, illness, and pain, long hours, shift work, and travel, and excessive demand, performance anxiety, and even bullying. So they can end up
Mm,
bullying maybe people that they work with, or Then it's emotional distress. This is emotional reactions follow failure to achieve or to connect effectively with others. In withdrawal, we feel isolated and retreat. And vulnerable, we lose the power of positive emotion to motivate and fall prey to negative emotions of sadness, anger, and fear. The third one says mental distress, and this starts with what we think is just chronic stress, and this is the most identified with physical symptoms, and this can be in the forms of tension, respiratory, I can talk to the respiratory, cardiac, abdominal, or skin disorders, and they said people feel overwhelmed by pressure and experience anxiety or worry. And then the final one is psychiatric diagnosis. It says depression diagnosed as unremitting sadness, loss of confidence, confusion, appetite, and sleep disturbance. And then it brings up suicide, which we talk about a lot on this show. So
yeah.
remember, y'all, obviously, as I say all the time, I'm no expert, but this is what comes from the experts. And as we dissect that, I think, if not all, most, I've suffered from at some point or another. Um, they don't always talk about that, and that's just kind of the beauty of this situation. I still believe you need to be a leader and choose to be a leader and, be a leader, not a follower. But we have to talk about the negative sides of being a leader. And I feel like
Mhm.
nobody ever does it. I rarely hear people talk about the negative sides. So they kind of like, I'm thinking of the word glitter. I don't know why, but they like throw glitter on it. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
down, bleeding, can't breathe, throw glitter on it, highlight it, make it just look good. So with everything that's been going on, as far as like the stress and the chronic stress and all these different things, what would be, before we move to the next segment, what would be the best mental health advice to anybody who's currently a leader who recently just got knocked down real bad?
This one, I literally maybe about a month ago just learned. And if I would have known this one when I started, I believe that we could have grown a lot faster. And it was actually Eric Thomas. Like I have to give advice or credit to him. He basically said, I burn out. Like I can burn out at any time. It just becomes too much and boom, done, burnout, right? But he says we don't burn out. I feel like burning out, and then somebody else on my team has the energy, and then it keeps moving and the machine keeps going, and then they uplift me, and then one of them gets burned out, but then we uplift them, and that's realistically the only way. And the hardest part is being vulnerable enough, but two, being able to communicate well enough so that way you don't seem like you're a dictator, because once you're a dictator, nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I even, just so that you can see, this is how it worked. I was putting out a lot of content, and I had my team on my personal one, Ruben Alvarez, right, on my Instagram. And I would have to beg them almost. I would have to tell them, hey, I posted it, and can you guys go like it? And then they would take a really long time, and it wouldn't get done. And you know what I mean? And so it would feel bad. Like, it would really feel bad. It would feel like it's my ego that I'm telling you to do something. We
Right.
got those same videos that we were making for marketing. I gave them to somebody new that we hired like a month or two ago. I told her, hey, can you post these on Marketing Hunters just so we have some traction? She would post them, send them to a group that we have on Instagram for all of our team. Instantly, everyone would go like it. Instantly, they would comment. And I'm like, what was the difference? It's because I'm not asking. It's because somebody else is asking. And because she's part of our team, everybody wants to do right by her, and they want to do right by me. And it's not an ego thing. It's about the company. And so the way that we can see it is when you're able to give people creativity, when you're able to give them tasks, when you're able to give them the spotlight, and it's not just about you, it grows faster because it's the business, right? Like, we all want to feel like we belong. And when you feel like it's a little piece of you and it's not just a dictatorship, you give more.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. And like, you have to find people that believe in what you're doing. And if you are, well, you always need a team, whether you working for a team or you have a team.
Yeah.
Even if you're an entrepreneur, you're still gonna need a team in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Well, the way that I see it, I'll just bring it back really quick. Most of us, I think we've gone to a point where we feel really sad and depressed, and then we feel like, man, I'm always looking for someone, and I have to beg someone to be there for me, right? Like, when I burn out, I need somebody, but nobody's ever there for me. But I'm always there for people. And so the
Right.
question is, how can you make it so that way people are there for you because they want to be there for you? And if you can figure that out, as like, you won't have depression, you won't have, these burnout moments, which are the really hard parts of business, like you said, that no one talks about. But realistically, you need those people there. So it's like, how can you figure that part out?
Absolutely. All right. So now let's move into the next segment, which is the weekly sabbatical. And in this is a time of kind of reflection and rest and just kind of thinking about some things. So before we get too deep in it, I just have to ask you, Christmas is 3 days away. What are you most excited about if you aren't already excited now?
Not a great answer, but I really like my days off. Right, I've been enjoying them more and more lately, so I'm really looking forward to having a few days off.
Okay. Good. I mean, that's a good answer. Educators, we get that fancy 2 weeks off, so we don't know how to act. And literally, we don't, because Thanksgiving break was a doozy. So now this Christmas was 2 weeks, and then with the schedule I'm at, we don't go. We won't see the kids again for some reason this year to like the 10th. Something crazy. I don't know
My
why. I'm
God.
gonna take it though.
Yeah.
So now, what does the phrase to you mean? Sale brings you money, but brand will bring you legacy.
Yeah, so obviously if you start a business, you need sales. Like, that's a given, right? The problem is that most of the times people focus on sales so much that they never build anything outside of that. So they don't build the website at all. And then you want to try to sell the business, and they're like, you don't even have a website. So how are you getting your money? And it's like, oh, well, salespeople. And then they're like, okay, what if the salespeople leave? Then what happens? And so you build a multi-million-dollar business, but you don't have anything that is customer retention base without you having to run the engine. And so therefore, if you're not running the engine dies without you. And so
Right.
that's the best way we can explain it is, if you really ever want to sell the business, or if you want to have a really high valuation, it's the brand. And that's why a lot of the billionaires out there are basically saying that they're focusing on branding now more than they are actually on the sales, because if they do that, it's a way higher valuation.
Yeah, I think that's good because I mean, it's a simple phrase, but it's definitely like one of those things where it's like it really packs a punch. I feel like because okay, yeah, you can go out and go and no shade, please, people. This is not shade. You could go start you a trucker hat line, and yeah, you're gonna make you some money. But what keeps people coming back is the branding and what
Mhm.
and really the message too. But that's obviously a part of the branding. But what are you trying to sell? Why are you doing this? I could have easily, and it would have easily, and I say, and I mean easily, have done a podcast that was the TMZ pop culture style, and that was it would have been expected. But I just felt like there's no. I just feel like I mean, y'all would have been being funny, but I can be funny with this, and this actually has a meaning and actually has a purpose. So and again, no shade to the people who do the pop culture type things because that's needed too. Somebody needs your outlook on those situations. I mean, even with this one, you heard me give my take on it at the beginning with certain things a little bit. Besides, I'm still standing on nothing but cakes. I'm not changing my views on that. I stand behind that. So tell us about how your book came about because everybody's writing a book. And when I say everybody, I don't mean like, oh, my cousin wrote a book. I mean, that's again, my cousin, if you write a book, I'm not saying nothing bad about you. But what I'm saying is a lot of these people are coming up with these books that I feel like to the people, they may seem like they're out of nowhere. But like these books have so much blood, they have blood, sweat, and tears in them. And you can tell that no matter if it's a book about one guest I had, he talked about how he had a real bad car accident and how he had to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. And then some people who talk about how they built their brands from the ground up. So tell us the name of it and how it came about.
Yeah, the name is Brand Sharks, Unstoppable Strategies from Industry Leaders. I wanted to write a book, and I went to the publisher. He's like, "Man, you don't have time to write a book." And I was like, "No, I know, but I still need one." And he goes, "Well, why don't you do a co-authoring project? It's a lot less of an investment on time and money. Plus, you can actually help people become authors that want to become authors." And I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And so once I really started thinking about it, I was like, "There's probably people who need these identity shifts that we've been talking about for a long time that we can help out with this." And so what we did is we created this platform more than anything where people could tell their stories, and their chapters are about 20 pages each, including mine. I wrote the intro and the outro plus a chapter, and then we have other people's chapters in there. They're not all authors. They identify with the word brand shark as well. Plus, the really cool thing is that now we're on volume 2. We're looking for authors on that one. But now we have a small community of maybe like anywhere from 20 to 24 authors. If I just decide to do a book 3, now we have about 36 to 40 authors. And basically, we're just building community and giving these people identity so that way they write their first book, even though it's only a chapter long, but that way it gets them ready into the next one, which might be their own book. And that way they're not intimidated by what it actually looks like.
Okay. Okay. So I actually got reached out. Somebody reached out to me. What was it like? Was it late 2020? I want to say it was late 2020. I think it was late 2020. They was talking about how they wrote a book of with authors from across the world, and they wanted me to be a part of the chapter. I haven't heard nothing else from it. I think it's on hiatus or something for right now, which is fine. But I think it's interesting seeing when I think of a project I did in high school where we were forced to write a. I think were we forced to write a sequel or ending? I can't remember what we were supposed to do. But either way, it was something like a sequel. I'm gonna just say it was a sequel to the book. No, it was an ending to the book. If we had to write our own ending to the book, and we were put in groups of threes. And I know some people they worked on the beginning, middle. They had to write 3 final chapters, and I know some people wrote the beginning, middle, and end with each other. And I know for my group, one person did the beginning, I did the middle, and somebody else did the ending. So when it comes to doing stuff like that, did the people's chapters like all like going like order with each other, or was it like a play almost where it like started one act go to the next act and kind of flowed, or was just like
It ended up being that way because of the way that I picked the chapters, because I ended up reading all of them to put the book together with the publisher, right? But more than anything, it followed the same theme, which was people who really came from almost nothing or had less than ideal circumstances decided that they weren't going to be a statistic; they were going to be an exception. Carved a name for them and carved the name for themselves in their industry, and basically that's the story of this is what I was and this is where I'm at now.
okay, cool. All right, so now let's move into another article called according to belief.net. It says you might not see yourself as a leader in the sense of being a CEO of a large company or an important politician. You have more of an influence than you realize. Are you leading your family each day? Do you have a pet? Do you teach a class at a church or a school? Do you help in any form of nursery or daycare? What kind of lifestyle do you live? All right. So when I think of stuff like that, I instantly think about, somebody's watching. And whether you realize it or not, you have kids, they watching and you don't realize it. It's stuff to this day I tell my parents they used to do. They be like, you remember that? I'm like, yeah. And stuff that I do the day, you just never realize people are paying attention. And so with that, I think of social media again. Now, you stated that dancing is a great tool for social media. Why is that?
Yeah, dancing really allows people to see you in a different light. It's a great disruptor more than anything, because a lot of the times we, as business people, show business things, we over promote our product. And the more that we promote something, the more that it looks like an ad. And as you know, how often do you really click on an ad on Facebook? Do you really like the ad or do you skip over it? And so whenever we show ourselves dancing, it really disrupts the feed to say, oh, half naked girl, or now it's like, oh, here's an ad, or here's a promotion, or here's a business. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's Ruben and Izzy dancing. Why are they dancing? What is it?
Right.
I've never seen them do it, right? So it really disrupts and it makes them stop. And a lot of the times whenever we do this, it actually gets better engagement than any other stuff that we've done. And it brings the attention back to us that we really wanted.
Okay. Yeah, and it's funny you said it because I've actually had a guest that was like, "Oh, you don't need to be dancing on social media." It's just so funny because like you have to find what works for you, and if
Yeah,
it,
we go based so what we do is we go based off of human psychology, and we've done so much research on the app of what triggers people. And so specific words that you say, like if you say, here's the fastest way you lose your money in a year, boom, that'll do really great for you. And so if you dance, boom, that'll do really great for you. You show a cat or a puppy, really great for you. You show really good food and you show it in 3 shots, 5 seconds each with a lot of sauce. The more sauce, the better. You show it dripping on the food and just even better. So it's like based on human psychology, those are the factors that make people stop the scroll. And so a lot of people, the times people might say, hey, you don't need to dance. To that, I say, hey, you don't need to dance, but are you actually trying to get more reach? If you are and you're trying to get the brand out there, then you might need to do what you need to do to get it out there.
exactly, and that's why I said you have to figure out what works for your stuff because some people it might not, they don't want to see you dance, but these other people is working for them.
Yeah.
All right, so according to 5 steps to be a leader in your industry, and this is not obviously just in business or entrepreneurship, this is not even just at you know a school. This is just in life in general. And this is so it says that no one aims to be a follower. On the contrary, people set goals to become leaders. However, just because you want to be a leader in your industry doesn't mean it will happen overnight. It says it takes plenty of hard work, dedication, and intelligent planning to become a leader. So the first thing it says set goals and make a plan. Leaders don't simply fall into positions of authority. They plan and work it for their whole lives. They need a clear vision and a roadmap to get there in order to inspire others to follow them. It says education and training. It says formal education and training includes school, training seminars, courses, and apprenticeships, among other traditional learning environments. It says taking business development class will help you understand how to build the business from the ground up. But then it says informal education and training takes place in your day-to-day life. It says it includes interaction with people and other work experiences. And when you have bad interaction with someone in authority over you, it is a learning experience. You have the opportunity to learn what doesn't work as a leader. So now I think that's great before we go further because I've had plenty of those. And I feel like those are sometimes combinations of two things. One is because you could just be lazy, which could be that. It could be both, really, or one or the other. One, you could just be lazy and a procrastinator. Two, your mindset is just not for working for working under someone else's style. Now, I believe that you can work with other styles, but you may not be the person who like I can work under this person. Maybe you need your own kind of thing going on. And prior to doing what you're doing now, what other regular jobs did you ever work?
Yeah, I was in a manufacturing company for 7 years doing sales and marketing for them. Uh, I was in culinary for 2 years, and I worked 4 different restaurants. I worked at Google, not for Google, but I worked at Google in their cafeteria to feed their staff. I was at Subway, and then I was at another manufacturing company with my father as well. And then I did the vape juices.
Oh, okay. Okay, he was all around. Okay, cool. All right, the third one says communicate. It says a key trait shared by almost every leader is the ability to communicate effectively. Leaders need to be able to sufficiently define their goals, their plans, and why their methods will work in order to inspire confidence in those around them. Now, you inspired, I feel like a lot of people, when you just talked about the whole dancing thing, you refuted anybody's opinion on that and theory behind that because one, you had research, two, you sounded confident in it, and it's working for you. Once again, I'm not about what sound good, I'm about what works. So how did that confidence develop? You know, some people always had confidence in themselves, or did yours just kind of it developed or just kind of was always there?
No, the confidence developed, and I think that it is based on learning hard skills, not just motivation to want to be confident. So I realized that if I didn't want to make a cold call, then I should probably learn sales and not just be talking about how I want to make a cold call or like deviate away from the cold call. And so that I believe is the biggest factor when you are trying to become confident is actually do the task that you're trying to be confident in, not just try to learn about it as much as you can. It's in the learning, but then it's in the action that follows up to learning and how many times you can do it and how fast you can do it that will give you the best result for it.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff. Fourth one is simple, but I feel like it's effective. Work hard. It says to be a leader in your industry, you need to be led. You need to lead by example. The best leaders inspire those around them because they put in the hard work and determined effort to get the job done right. And even with that one, I think that kind of correlates with what I kind of briefly talked about, which is being led. Because to be a good leader, you have to follow somebody. You didn't come out mastering how to do this something. Somebody had to teach you. You had to follow directions. You had to learn the steps. And, I talk about being a servant or being, you have to, not like a peasant servant. So don't get too confused, people, with the word, but like a servant as far as you have to give, you have to do stuff in the community. You have to, you have to always be teachable, even no matter what position you're in. And as you brought up with Donald Trump earlier, I think that was the irritation people had with him, because they felt like he was just like, no, I'm not doing that. He wasn't always teachable. And I think that's what bothered a lot of people about him versus some of these other people who are a little more humble. But, just because you're humble don't necessarily mean you're right either. But, it is what it is. And the fifth one, it says invest in your team. It says the final step to becoming a leader in your field is to invest in your team. Being a leader doesn't mean you keep others down. It means you build others up. And again, you want people working for you, working around you. You have to lead by example. And, in some cases I've had in some jobs. You the principal and you coming late. Why you think I'm finna be on time?
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I'm just being honest. While I'm coming on time, you don't even come on time. So how you gonna write me up? You need to write yourself. We need to write us up at the same time. All right. So anything you want to add to that before we move into the final segment?
Nah, nothing else.
All right. So let's go into the final game, which is called Leader or Led. All right. In this game, I'm gonna name a few different scenarios, and I want you to tell me whether or not this person is being a leader or they're being led. All right. You ready?
Yep.
All right. The first scenario. Everyone complains about their job and how horrible it is. One person finally decides to leave and says they've had enough.
They're leading.
Okay. Several people at your organization are discussing something that happened off work, and you end up joining in the conversation, and you're the one that gets in trouble for it as if you started.
No, they're being led.
Absolutely. You decide to quit your job to start your business full time. Although you had many trials and errors, you then end up deciding to go back to work for a little while because your job wasn't where you thought it was going to be.
No, still leader.
Absolutely. You and your girlfriend decide to start your own business, but she ends up flaking on it, and then you end up taking over what she started.
I don't know. That still sounds like a leader if you're able to commit to it.
Yeah, definitely. And final one. So you decide to go to a new place as far as the new city and everything, left everything behind, ended up getting swindled into this position, and now you're stuck. It's a lot
Lead,
going on.
lead.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let's move into the final question for final segment, which is the question of challenge for y'all. So this is the final one of the year. What is stopping you from being the best leader? And if you say, "Well, I'm already a great leader," how are you a great leader now? Please tell me. I'd love to hear it. So before we go, anything that I know real G's moving silence like lasagna. But is there anything you're willing to share or that you have coming up as far as anything that you want to accomplish? And of course, you want to reveal everything going into the new year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we want to accomplish is that identity shift that we're talking about. I believe that that is one of the really important things for people is that we remain in our minds as the same thing for a really long time. So it is going to be about, I think, the office more than anything, because one, we want to create an identity of not just a small business, but of an actual business, and two, we want to create the idea of a business that is more like an agency, like a New York style thing. So that's what we're excited about. We're excited about the shift that's coming. We have the book that's also coming, so it'll be a 2x author. I actually this is probably kind of more in line with what you were thinking. I think that within the next few months I'll be Instagram verified, which is something that I'm really excited about.
Okay. All right. Good. That's a process. So I'm trying to think anything else I want to say before I close off season 6. It was a bit a doozy in a good way. A lot of expected and unexpected things. Even this episode, I didn't expect. I expected a few others who just kind of flaked, but I'm glad they did. And if they come back, then they come back. But I want to say thank you to you first because you're here right now. Great episode, full of insight. Like I said, we just the conversation kind of flowed like water. It wasn't off, it wasn't awkward or anything. But I want to thank everybody who's been keeping up all season, who's gonna find this show in the off season and binge. You got a lot of binging to do. I won't be back for season 7 until March 30th, so I got plenty of time. But I hope you have a great holiday. Please eat a lot of food. If you're on a diet, please break it for the day or two, because Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, they one and the same. And I think that's really it. I don't really have much else to say. I think that going into 2023, some of you, again, as we said earlier, a lot of people are trying to start their new year January 1st. And even though you're supposed to, I say you start having an idea around October, maybe kind of coming up with some stuff in November. Some of you be thinking I feel I'm too late to start my year early. Well, look, it still ain't officially the first of the year. So if you hearing this and you saying going into 2023, I want to crash my goals and crush my goals in some new ways, this episode would definitely be that. So that's all I got to say. Everybody, y'all have a great holiday and happy new year to everybody. For the last time of 2022, PSA signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurts. Remember who you are and make your mind up. Don't let it make you.